And we are back. So, welcome to Take Human Action PA, episode number 14. Now, slight correction from last time. We had our episodes ordered slightly off. So, last time was actually episode 13, which makes this one 14. So, we're actually one episode further ahead than I thought we were. So, we're making progress here. I'd say we're well on our way. So again, I'm Calvin, one of the organizers for PA here. You can follow us at LP Mises Caucus PA on Twitter and Mises Caucus of Pennsylvania on Facebook. And I got Ben over here as well. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great, Calvin. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Ready for our next guest here. We've got waiting in the back. Got some questions ready for him. And as always, drop your questions in the chat here for our guest. And do you want to say anything before we get started?
No, I'm Ben Heckman. I am a dues-paying member of the Mises Caucus. I am state chair for Young Americans for Liberty out of Pennsylvania, and I'm looking forward to the conversation we're about to have with the Libertarian Gubernatorial candidate for Pennsylvania, Matt Hackenberg.
Right, and it's a good start to our introduction. So, we have here the Mr. Governor nominee himself, Libertarian gubernatorial nominee for the Pennsylvania Libertarian Party. There's a lot of interesting things I could say about him. He's a former Mises organizer. He's been working with us for a long time now. Feels like we were working together for years, and well, we probably have. And I don't want to steal too much away from him because he has a really fascinating story and background that I want to let him say himself. So without further ado, let's bring on the governor himself. Everybody give a welcome to Matt Hackenberg. Matt, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on. It's great to have you.
It's excellent to be on and get my face out there and get to talk to some good friends and share the message.
Yeah, feels like haven't heard from you since the national convention almost. Like it's been a while. And we're glad we even saw you there. It was a close call for a while.
Yeah, almost didn't make it, but decided to go, and it was a good time. It was good to meet everyone and just to witness history being made.
Yeah, that's an understatement. We've already hashed it out on this show, so we can definitely get into it again if you want to talk about it from your perspective. But just to start us off, why don't you tell us a bit about your background, your story, and how you fell into libertarianism?
Ooh, let's see. I started off in as a neocon when I was in high school, and lover of all things G.W. Bush and all the wonderful wars. And then I discovered Ron Paul in 2008, and was a big fan of his message and what he said. And my biggest holdup was his foreign policy, and it took me a while to realize that I was wrong and made some mistakes, and I've since atoned for those mistakes. And anyway, so I learned about Ron Paul and was a huge fan. It wasn't until a little bit later on I was still supported the military, but I wasn't a fan of foreign intervention, so I decided to join the National Guard, the Army National Guard. And it wasn't until there that I learned more things, and I started listening to Tom Woods while in the Guard and reading Murray Rothbard. And that's when I discovered, I was wrong about all of this, not just the foreign intervention, but everything. And now I'm profoundly anti-war and, just diehard libertarian. Consider myself an anarchist. I think the state is evil in all forms. If you can define evil as a thing, but it is the state. It is the worst, the most destructive thing known to man. And that's a big part of me getting there is, like I said, from when my time in the Army and just as what I've seen and experienced interacting with people. It's a level of psychopathy that just can't be understated, and I don't think people really appreciate how much the state doesn't care about you and will gladly murder everyone, and not losing sleep over it. So once you see that, you realize like this is all really jacked up.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, I remember when we were first talking about your experience, and it's almost like I don't know if this happens with everybody or even like a majority of the people who come from a military background, but it seems after that they turn a lot more anti-war than the general population. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And most people don't see the sacrifices, the costs of war. To them it's just it's nothing. Like they forget about it. They forget that, or maybe they don't have any clue that there are boys and girls overseas who are fighting and dying, and they come home and then they're discarded and allowed to rot like discarded trash. And most people don't see that. They don't think about it. They don't care about it. But when you're in it, and even if I avoided all deployments like the plague. I was anti-intervention, but still just interacting with these people. These people are human beings. These people are just, like I said, discarded. And you hear these stories, and when you actually put faces to these things, put faces to these people and the things they experience, it's really mind blowing that there could be anything that's of a greater priority than hey, let's stop sending our children to go and fight and die in these conflicts, or if they don't die, they come back like permanently emotionally damaged, and it's just tragic. It's horribly tragic. You're seeing the families destroyed. You can witness it, and it's appalling. I said most people no idea. They just go to work, go to school, whatever. They don't care.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
So Matt, I'm curious. Then, do you view the Libertarian Party as the anti-war party? Because the Green Party, they claim to be anti-war. Donald Trump, Republican Party guy, he campaigned on ending the wars, and if you talk to any of his supporters, they'll say that he ended the wars. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think anti-war party been close. Libertarian Party's been the closest thing. I think war is the lifeblood of the state. So, unless you're proponent of full anarchy, you're going to be the war is going to be inevitable, right? The state gets its power through violence, and if you're okay with initiation of violence, you're going to have some sort of war. But the closest thing we get is Libertarian Party. Libertarian Party is the only one that's really spoken out about it. We're the ones that are pushing for change in this direction. We're the ones promoting legislation like Defend the Guard, and Republicans they make lip service, but they're just like the Democrats and everyone else. They only care about well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. They probably care about feeding money to weapons contractors and things like that. It's what gets them reelected, what gets them campaign donations, and not actually ending wars.
Right. And I really resonate with what you just said. I think war is my top issue personally. Just looking at how it devastates families in like a multitude of ways. Not only are sons and daughters being killed overseas, but military recruitment officers, in my opinion, are leeches on society, and they really just go after the poor.
That's true.
I'm curious then. You mentioned while you were talking that you just started listening to Tom Woods and reading Murray Rothbard. Most people don't just start listening to Tom Woods or reading Murray Rothbard. Those aren't the most mainstream people in the world, right? Could you maybe elaborate a little more on how you discovered Tom Woods and Murray Rothbard?
So I guess I read Reason for a while, Reason magazine, but it's kind of like intellectually dull. It has been like as long as I've read it, and it's always kind of like thirsty for more. And I saw somewhere, I read somewhere, someone said, "Hey, Tom Woods is starting a new podcast. You should." And I was like, "Oh, who's this Tom Woods guy?" And I'm sure I heard him before speaking during the Ron Paul campaign, but never really didn't notice. So I started listening to his podcast basically from the very beginning, and listening to that. That's he talked about this guy Murray Rothbard a lot. And the first book I read was For New Liberty, and that blew my mind, and it made me go from a devout libertarian to just an anarchist. This whole thing is screwed up. I started having trouble with reconciling, like, why is it okay for me? Is it morally just and right for me to continue, my job here, or should I stop coming? Which is eventually what I wound up doing, and so very, very powerful message. Very, very powerful thinkers.
Yeah, and I think we're really lucky to have Tom Woods, especially as one of our forefathers, if you will, one of the guys that's really leading this sort of new wave of libertarianism.
Absolutely.
Right. So how did all that lead you to the caucus then? Because, it got to the point where we were working together as organizers, basically. So how did that all get started?
So, I mean, like all proper small L libertarians, I long had resentment for the Libertarian Party, the big L types. I saw them as, just useless parasites on the name. And it wasn't until Dave Smith and Tom both started talking about the Mises Caucus and Michael Heiss and what they're doing, and it started sounding, wow, this sounds actually impressive. These are our people. People are our philosophical brethren getting together and taking over this party. And I remember hearing it early on and thinking, like, I should probably join. But it wasn't until 2020 and the whole Rona apocalypse that I was like, well, you know what? This is getting a little dicey. We got to do something about it. So I joined, signed up for the Mises Caucus, joined the state party, the national party, signed my wife up as well. And we, wanted to go at least go check out the LPPA convention. And, when you join, you got free tickets to see Dave Smith, which was pretty great. So we did that and figured check out the convention, see what's going on. And then got sucked in from there. And here we are.
Well, who were the first people you met from the caucus in person at that convention? Because I feel like either that or the one this year was the start for a lot of people. And I'd been in it for a while before that, so I kind of missed that whole phase of like stumbling into it and like seeing, how big it was or how many people there were at that point. So, how did that part of it feel to you, like coming there and seeing like how many people there were?
So, then like looking back at it now, like there's all these people. I had no idea who any of them were. It was a big mystery. I didn't know who was friendly and who wasn't. Even though we were talking to these people on chats beforehand, it's kind of hard to put faces to a name on a chat. The first person I really had a good opportunity to talk to and get to know was Kate Crosby. We, hung out for a while afterwards and talked about, all things, foreign policy and otherwise. And yeah, it was a really good experience. When you're first entering this world of libertarianism, when you're the lone liberty-minded person in your universe, it's very lonely. You're not used to speaking to people who have these ideas, who share these ideas. So going there and speaking to her for a while and sharing these ideas, it's wow, this is amazing. I can talk to a person who has like the same ideas that I do and like thinks the same way I do, and this is totally new, and it feels incredible. It feels incredible, and it's addictive. And now it's to the point where it's like I don't know otherwise. Like, I almost only talk to people who are liberty minded, and it's almost unusual. I talk to like normies that I do talk to a lot of normies, but especially with the campaign. But it's almost unusual now. It was normal. I know so many people who are of the liberty persuasion, and that's kind of become my big promoting point where I push people to join the party and join the caucus, is because it's forget all the party politics stuff inside, right? It's this thing that you're doing, this goal that you're trying to achieve, that you get to do with other people, and you develop this camaraderie with fellow libertarians, like-minded people, and you develop great friendships, and it's basically kind of like a brothers in arms kind of thing, and it's well worth the effort. Even if the political side of it is a total waste, a total wash, the community side of it is well worth it. And I don't think it could ever happen. I don't think it would be the same without the political side of it. Without the political battles and political fights, you wouldn't have that bonding experience. But with it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's no feeling quite like it. just like the amount of people that were there even then, like, and that was nothing compared to this year. It's just crazy how much it's grown just in the past year and a half, really. That's all it's been.
For sure.
So Ben, did you want to jump in on that part?
I asked this question in the last episode, but I'm just like genuinely curious because, you know, there's something a bit controversial about the Mises Caucus. I'm not quite too sure what it is, but I'm curious what you think the biggest misconception of the Mises Caucus is, given, you know, the way you discovered it and started becoming friends with people within it. What would you say is the biggest misconception of the Mises Caucus?
So, I mean, I think the thing is most people are just largely ignorant about the Mises Caucus, and their opinion is driven by a handful of bad faith actors. They're just, you know, political partisans who want to maintain their position. People with their egos, they want to keep control of their sandbox, so they lie a little bit and they mislead. And then most people are just don't know better. They think we're racist or misogynist or hateful or something terrible like that, which is all nonsense. This is like the most loving bunch of people I've ever met, and I can't. The lies that they tell is unbelievable. So, whether it's misconceptions as far as that goes, I think, like I said, most of them are just bad faith actors spreading lies. And, but forget them; they're irrelevant. They can go away.
Yeah, for sure. And as someone who joined the Libertarian Party in like 2018, I was not really into the Mises Caucus for my first couple of years being in the LP. I can say, like, with certainty that the Mises Caucus is the most diverse group within the Libertarian Party, which is kind of funny if you think about it.
And like intellectually diverse, there's a lot of we have vibrant debates and discussions, intellectual discussions, which is the diverse, which is really important. But I wouldn't be in the Libertarian Party if it weren't for the Mises Caucus. The Mises Caucus is the reason why I'm here, and that is, as with a lot of people, without it, there's no purpose. And I think libertarianism without the influence of Mises and Rothbard is not libertarianism at all. So without it, with the old guard in place, they can go pound salt. It's like I said, it was a joke, misusing the name libertarian, and now it's back in the rightful hands, the rightful owners.
Yeah, I couldn't really agree more. And there is a lot of intellectual diversity as well in the Mises Caucus. You got a really fair amount of pro-choice and pro-life people and open border, closed border people. And we're all united in our shared sort of hierarchy of outrage, which is what I love, because what we really all are united on is how much we care about the issues that really matter. And if you look at the planks of the Mises Caucus, I think it's the best sort of layout of the most important issues of our time currently facing us. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is quite impressive. It is quite a white pill, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on then to your time as an organizer. So what stood out to you about that, like with the, I guess, like the dynamic of the group, like some of the best things in your view that you worked on, like some of the cool things going on behind the scenes that you might have seen. What stood out to you the most about that?
Well, I mean, the first thing that really struck me is how freaking impressive all these people are. These are all people who are well above average intelligence and capabilities, and they've all decided to get together and start a fight with the state, and it's quite awe-inspiring, really. And it's been real rewarding experience to interact with all these people, and how well we're able to go from nothing to take over a political party, a state political party. And it's almost like Mises Caucus is organized, but its organization is quite spontaneous. That it's expectation. People they see something needs to be done, they pick it up, they take it, and they go with it. And it's all these things managed to fall in place, and it's just a beautiful example of like almost spontaneous order. And it's just truly impressive experience to see. And we're involved with a lot of different bits and pieces. My wife is now the treasurer of the LPPA, so I got to involved and help a lot with her campaign there. And then just little bits and pieces of the lens, and it's just, like I said, impressive experience.
Yeah, you two dove head first about as much as anyone could, and maybe more than like any other couple has in this party, at least like in this state.
Well, yeah, we're both like full dogmatic fanatics, and we've been major liberty people for very, very long time. So it was, I don't know why we didn't do it sooner.
Yeah. Ben, you want to ask anything on that?
Not particularly, but if we want to move on to like the gubernatorial run and policy stuff, can we do that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. So, what happened? What happened this year? Like, we were at this state convention, and then, I'm being a bit rhetorical about this, but you just got flung into running for governor. So, what the hell? What the hell happened?
First. I'm sitting over there, just picking my nose, minding my own business. I look over and I see my wife Laura and Kate giggling like two schoolgirls, and like, what are they doing? And then Kate goes up and nominates me first for lieutenant governor, which then eventually turned into being governor. So like, oh, okay, surprise. Yeah, I mean, at first it's like, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I never would have thought I would ever run for political office, but. I feel like now's the time we need someone who has a good grounding in the philosophy and good understanding of what needs to be done, what needs to be said. So, like, all right, well, I will take up this torch, and I will take it, and I will run, and I will start the process of insulting the state and putting myself at risk to do so. But it'll be quite exciting.
Yeah, I can definitely say that. It's been a very unexpected race so far, and I don't think anyone has been going after their opponents, at least on social media, in this race as much as you have been.
Yep.
And we'll get into the other ways for sure. But Ben, did you want to ask anything to start us off with that?
Yeah, so why a third party run? Why not run as a Liberty Republican or something like that? Why go with the Libertarian Party?
Well, that's always a good question. The Republican Party doesn't care about you, and I reject the idea that really, in general, that electoral politics is going to be the solution to the problem. The solution is one of cultural change and one of people accepting new ideas. So I see our role here is to influence the ideas, is what is discussed from the sidelines as best we can. While I doubt, at least at the gubernatorial level, we will ever be allowed to win the election, even if we were to get 51% of the vote. I'm sure we will somehow be denied that victory. But what we can do is we can use this platform to preach what needs to be preached. What people need to know that people see the seams, the mask of this monster coming off, and we need to tell them like, hey, look, those things that you've seen happen to you, that your life is being turned upside down, that your purchasing power crashing over this past year or two, and your quality of living dropping like a stone, is not just happenstance, and people know that. And they need to be told and explained to them like what's going on. The state doesn't care about you. The state is currently fleecing you and stealing everything you have, and it's not going to stop until the people say stop. So we need to get out there and spread the message that is upon us to just stop, recognize the legitimacy of the state and their actions, and actually fight for and stand up for what we know is right. Everyone knows is right, but they just want and reject that the natural instinct to go along with the crowds and just follow the crowds. We saw with things like mask mandates. If people just don't comply, then they don't matter, right? And so there's no need for any kind of violence or anything like that. It's just a matter of people just saying, no, I'm good with your silly mandates, your silly suggestions. And we need to wake people up and let people realize that we need to fight for our liberty now. Now is the time, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I agree. I think a third-party campaign, an exciting third-party campaign, can be a great platform to change culture in a lot of different ways. So I'm curious how you've used the platform to do that exactly so far. So any kind of media attention or anything like that so far with your campaign?
Nothing major so far yet. And right now the whole governor race thing is still kind of slow. We're kind of waiting for it to pick up a little bit, and just kind of flinging poop on social media. But we have some plans and some ideas for how to make things a little more spicy going forward.
Gotcha. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So, what are your plans as far as meeting with people, going across the state, having events? Like, what are you going to do along those lines?
So we're kind of planning a number of stops throughout the state. The hope is to hit most of the counties, in the state, just little meets and greets so people can meet me and everything. At least members of Libertarian Liberty movement and whatnot. But then also come with a plan to get more attention in the mainstream press and see if we can get some people triggered and offended by ideas of liberty being thrust upon them. So it's going to be a good time. And we're kind of working out some plans and some ideas, and hopefully exciting to see. We'll see how it goes.
Is there still a bus in the works?
Oh, there's a bus.
Oh,
yeah. Where we're going to, there's a medical cannabis expo in the Poconos this weekend. We'll be there with the bus. And just checking out and say hello to people and meet the, not necessarily liberty people, but there are people who are going to be of like mind. People who are of, stereotypical libertarian ideas of legalized weed.
So if you want to see the first ever Pennsylvania candidate or Pennsylvania Libertarian candidate bus, you got to come out and meet Matt. That's what we've decided right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still need to see it.
Oh yeah, you haven't seen it yet, have you?
No, not in person.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's we took it to Pork Fest this year and it was great. It's fantastic.
All right, next time we'll have to do that. I'm surprised you didn't take it to Pittsburgh. But, yeah.
Gas is expensive, so
yeah. Well, that's true. All right,
yeah.
Topic for another time. What do you got, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I need to see that bus too. That sounds kind of exciting. But you said you're going to a marijuana expo. So I'm assuming then that means you support legalizing marijuana in the state of Pennsylvania. Do you support legalizing just marijuana? And you think maybe, other drugs are a little bit too dangerous for the people of Pennsulvania? Or do you support legalizing every drug? Well, what's your position on drug legalization?
I support the ending of the drug war completely. There's a decriminalization of all drugs. Not just cannabis and not just psychedelics either, but all drugs. I think if you should be able to purchase heroin, meth, whatever, it should be up to the individual to decide. It shouldn't be the state regulating them. As we see, prohibition does not work. It's going to be an utter failure. You see, the opioid epidemic is a direct result of the prohibition and the crackdown of the state in the sale of drugs. Which has been unfortunate, and it's caused untold deaths. And we can blame it on the pharmaceutical companies, we can blame it on anything else. At the end of the day, it's the state and the state's prohibitions. So I think that it is one of the greatest atrocities that the state performs upon us, and it is a moral necessity that all prohibitions, be stopped immediately.
Yeah, no disagreements there. So what would you say is your top position or your top issues? Like if you just have an elevator pitch or like a quick pitch to someone and you want to highlight what's like most important to you, then what would you tell them?
So, I mean, there's a number of issues. If you want to talk about one specific piece of legislation, it's going to be defend the guard. I think that's a critical piece of policy that needs to be enacted. Now, I'm not typically big on policy, and we can get into reasons why. But as far as policy goes, the Defend the Guard is fantastic. Basically, it says that there needs to be a federal declaration of war before the governor can turn the state's National Guard forces into federal service, which is what we've seen with the quote unquote war on terror, where you have National Guard units that are regularly being activated and deployed, and which is a tragedy. We tell these kids that, hey, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, we'll pay for your college, blah blah blah, and then they sign up and then they want them getting deployed. The peak of every 3-4 years, these guys are getting deployed, getting overseas, staying away from their families, up to 18 months at a time, and it's atrocious. Basically selling them a bag of goods and shipping them off. And so we can deprive the federal government of the ability to deploy our soldiers and keep them home where they belong, serving their community where they belong. I think that would be a huge benefit to the community and to the state.
Most voters, when they're voting for the governor or state representative, state senator, they don't really think you can affect foreign policy at the state level. It's not something that voters tend to think about going into the voting booth for that. But us as libertarians, anti-war libertarians, we see something like Defend the Guard and we hop all over that because it's a little bit easier to achieve than something at the federal level. So what would you say to your typical Pennsylvania voter who maybe doesn't care as much about foreign policy, especially when it comes to voting at the state level?
Do you mean about Defend the Guard specifically, or just in terms of just the domestic issues?
Yeah, sure. Defend the Guard specifically. I'm not even sure if there's any other kind of way you can affect foreign policy at the state level, okay. but yeah. So
the biggest thing for me though, the Defend the Guard is really just to defend our boys and girls and keep them from being sent overseas. Even if we deprive the federal government of the small amount of resources that we have in terms of manpower, I don't know how much that's going to impact foreign policy, but at the very least, it's going to deprive them of our boys and girls. That we're putting it in the hands of the state to do with as they please. So it is tantamount or paramount that we defend them, and that the state government should make sure that these boys and girls are not sent into harm's way unless it's absolutely critical and absolutely necessary.
Yeah, that's something that we do want to raise more awareness of, and I'm glad to see now that at the state and the national level, the LP has passed resolutions in favor of Defend the Guard. I'm glad that's coming to the attention of more people now, and that we're starting to get word out there about that.
For sure.
So Ben, I could just keep asking questions, but if you got any more, just jump in at any point.
Yeah, at this point, I'm almost just going down the list. One of my other personal favorite policies, or I guess state level pieces of legislation that I've seen really, especially recently, gain a lot of traction is school choice. Corey DeAngelis, in my opinion, is one of the greatest activists in the country alive today. Do you support school choice? What exactly is school choice? And do you see it passing in Pennsylvania ever?
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of school choice. Frankly, I think the state should be out of education altogether, completely. I think it should have nothing at all to do with education. I don't think it should be taking money from homeowners and to do any of this. But as a stepping stone, I think school choice is fantastic. And because it's this idea where you can take your child out of the public school and they'll give you a voucher to take to another school, whether it be a private school, a charter school, or home school, whatever. I'm a firm believer that next to the military industrial complex, the public education system is another great evil. It takes your children from you for 13 years and indoctrinates them into these mindless zombies who hate you and they hate your freedom and they hate liberty, and they love and worship the state. The state has become the new religion, and the schools, but nothing but the church that indoctrinates them to pursue that religion. So I think if we care about liberty, we need to get kids out of the system, because it's horrible, and it doesn't teach kids anything. They learn, they memorize things by rote. They read the textbook, and they can memorize the textbook, and they repeat it on a test. There's no critical thinking. There's no understanding. There's no progression of logic, and they churn out after 13 years. People can barely tie their own shoes, barely flip hamburgers, and then you go off to a university for 4 more years so they can learn additional nonsense. And it's a huge problem. And aside from making brain dead robots, it also just doesn't produce people who are capable of producing the things that we need in society. So we have an economy that's propped up by printed money, and where we can have everyone going off to be middle management, useless bodies with their degrees, and they can actually make money and afford to live. But as this economy gets worse and worse and worse, that's not going to be sustainable, and we're going to need more and more, more productive tasks, more productive workers. But as boomers continue to retire, and the school system is not producing these people. It's not producing people who can, electricians and plumbers and machinists and welders, things that we actually need, things that are actually critical for maintaining infrastructure and things. So if the public school system is incapable of adapting properly and producing the output that it needs to produce, then we as a society, for our ability to continue to survive, we need to take the money out of there and send them to schools that actually produce kids or teach kids things that they need to know, things that they need to learn. And I think it's really one of the, as far as domestic policy goes, is schools choice is probably my biggest thing. That's a huge thing of incredible importance, especially if you have kids. I mean, if anyone has kids, you get crazy about it.
Thanks, Matt. And just a general reminder to the audience. So we are going to be taking questions at the end, so keep your questions coming. If we don't get to them right away, that's why. We'll take as many as we can towards the end of it. So thanks, Matt, for your answer. I want to change the subject a little bit because this is something I run into a lot, and I want to get your take on it. There's people that I talk to when I'm talking about some of the projects that I'm working on in this space, and they just don't want to get involved because they say, politics doesn't affect me. It's just, people fighting with each other. Why should I care? I've got enough going on in my life. Why should I care about this stuff? Why should I care about, the elections, who's running, anything like that?
So, frankly, in my mind, the people who are agnostic or apathetic, they don't matter. I mean, that's really my opinion on it, because you don't matter. You don't have opinion, then.
So, well, would you say anything to them as far as this, it does affect you, whether you are going to be affected by it or not, or whether you think you'll be affected by it or not, it'll still affect you somehow. You know what I'm saying?
See, I think in my mind, or my opinion, is a lot of people I've talked to who are apathetic. They're apathetic for a reason. A lot of people find it stressful, and they don't like the stress and anxiety it brings, so they just avoid it, and they say, I don't care. So why stress them out? Why try to push them into something that they don't care about, they don't want to know about? If you started telling me about the different types of makeup you can use, I don't care. Don't push it on me. I don't give a shit. And so, and just pushing on them is not going to change anything. And frankly, really, as far as politics goes, we see throughout history, the political change is active on the fringes, right? It's by a relatively a minority on either side, and most people are just go along with the flow. So I'd rather let the sheep be sheep, and not waste our time and energy on them.
Well,
maybe radical, but
all right. Well, that's fair. So just to flip that around, then, how would you approach people on the left or the right? Who would you say you've had more success with, or has it been about the same? And what approaches do you use with them?
Well, there's no moral equivalency between the right and the left. They are two different things, and the right is the only one that's in my experience, the right are the only ones who are really reachable. The left, at least today, the left, I think, is just the result of indoctrination and propaganda. They are just robots working for the state, if only whatever the state tells them to do. The right, on the other hand, they're much more, in general, I find them much more independent thinkers. In order to be conservative in this country, you have to be independent thinker. You turn on the TV, you turn on social media, and you're pumped with a barrage of leftist propaganda. In order for you to get to that more right-wing position, you actually need to go think outside the box, and you actually need to look outside the box. So I find these people to be more primed in our direction, and a lot of these guys, like Trump supporters and more populist conservatives, they watched the 2020 election, and they watched which was an interesting outcome, and their world has turned upside down, and they realize that the system that they've long believed in may not function as they believed it did, and it's critical for us. This is one of my main reasons for getting involved and for running, is that these people who've had their understanding of reality blown up, that they're ready for reprogramming. They're ready to be told and shown what the truth is, what the reality is. And I think that's where we stand to prosper, is to reach out to these right wingers, the populist right wingers, the disenfranchised Trump supporters, and say, hey, there's this philosophy of libertarianism, true philosophy of libertarianism. It's in line with your values. It's consistent with your values, but it gives you the answers, the actual answers that you're looking for, and not whatever the GOP tells you.
All right. Well, sorry, Ben, I'll just ask one more question and I'll be done. So I'll just give a little bit of pushback on that. So I've seen on the left, like myself, and I used to run in some circles that you would now describe as left, but even now, like I've seen from some people on the left, like you could say, just if you're gonna oversimplify it, that there's some people on the far left you might say are progressive or woke, but then there's like people who are kind of soft left and maybe think that like some government programs are a good idea, or that we should be legalized or something, but they don't like Bernie Sanders or AOC, and they might not even like Biden, but they're still kind of associated with like the left or the Democrat Party just because they've been that way for so long and they didn't really like any of the other options. So
yeah, I don't mean to speak in absolutes. Yeah, I agree. There absolutely are people who are on the left-ish who are that way, but as a general trend, I find that's unusual, and you could see it in politics as a whole. How many Democrats are there that are tolerable versus how many Republicans are there that are tolerable? That on the left we have like Tulsi Gabbard, right, and on the right we have Thomas Massey and Rand Paul and a number of other Republicans who are more conservative but still more liberty friendly. So the populist movement is largely on the right. There was at one time a populist movement on the left, but it's largely dwindled, I feel like, or it's been co-opted. But that isn't to say that there isn't traditional liberals, people who are more of a traditional 90s liberal that you'll see who are probably more reachable.
Yep, fair. That's all fair. So thanks, Matt. Ben, go for it.
So you mentioned that and I got to be kind of careful with how I word this one. So you mentioned that the outcome of the 2020 election was interesting.
Yep.
Your Republican opponent right now, Doug Mastriano, is under a lot of fire for his position on the 2020 eletion.
Mm-hmm.
What is your position? Do you view it as legitimate? Would you look into every single voting machine or whatever it is that Mastriano wants to do? What would you say also, if you want to answer this question after that, to a Mastriano voter who really cares about that issue in particular? I feel like a lot of Republican voters right now who, I feel like it's easier to pull from Republicans. A lot of them really care about this issue. Yeah. So what would you say to them?
Well, one, I'm kind of disenfranchised on the whole voting system in general. I don't know. There's so much incentive to game the system that, no matter how many safeguards you put in place, that some clever guy is going to come up with a way to work around it. And that's just the nature of incentives and human action. Things like mail-in voting need to be done away with, and whatever. There's no ways you can do to actually design the system to make it more secure. And the system was designed to not be secure at all whatsoever. And it's clear how it's implemented. There's no attempt at vote certification or authentication verification. all that aside, as it comes to Mastriano and his supporters, it's like my question to them would be that: do you think Mastriano was going to serve you, the voter, or is he going to serve the World Economic Forum? Right? Does he really? You think he's working in your best interest, or is he working in his own best interest? And he can say what he wants to say now, but he supported Act 77, and he's he can backpedal and say that he didn't mean it or whatever. But at the end of the day, we know he works for a Republican machine, a political machine, who doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about any of us. So the idea that he's somehow more of a more conservative candidate than Shapiro is nonsense. He's just fake.
What is Act 77? I don't actually know what that is.
I believe that's the. I think that's the right act. That's the law that was passed in 2019, I believe, that made legalized mail-in voting. No mail-in voting in Pennsylvania. That was passed as a constitutional amendment, which was never ratified by what's it? The ballot initiative.
And they just went with it anyway.
They went with it anyway. It was since ruled unconstitutional, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, and they completely backfired on them too. That probably had at least something to do with what happened in 2020.
It's kind of crazy that he voted for that. I feel like that should be a really good attack at Mastriano.
It didn't backfire. It was a mistake. It was intentional, right? Make no mistake, right? The GOP establishment did not want Trump to win again. They did not like him. They like the Republicans and Democrats. They all kind of work for the same kind of organization, if you will. And Donald Trump was not. They didn't want him. The regular Republicans didn't want him, or your establishment Republicans didn't want him. So they didn't support it by accident, right? This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional, and it was suggesting otherwise is just naive and crazy.
So, if we could change subjects again a little bit. Earlier, you mentioned apathy towards politics. I think that a way in which a lot of us third-party guys feel apathetic towards politics is when the two major parties sort of collude to keep third parties out of the fold, right?
Yeah.
So, and obviously you need ballot access to be able to have people vote for you, right? So, how are we looking on ballot access? Do you think you're going to be on the ballot? Do people who might want to support you have any reason to feel apathy for this election?
Well, so far, looks like we should be good to go. I think we're just turning in our signatures soon if we haven't already. And as far as I know, we should be well over the minimum, and we should be in a safe area to go to be able to be on the ballot for sure. Now, that isn't to say there aren't going to be some other challenges or other silly games that the system will play. I'm sure Mastriano will do everything he can to keep me off the ballot because they don't, and Shapiro maybe as well. They don't want a Libertarian candidate telling about how much this Republican gubernatorial candidate is a dirty leftist and make him look bad to his Republican supporters.
Yeah, so I'd say some people who aren't involved in the day-to-day aspects of what's going on don't really know like all the hoops that we have to jump through just to have your name be an option on the ballot. So can you summarize that for someone who's completely new?
Yeah, so basically what needs to happen is I need to get a minimum of 5,000 people who are registered voters in the state of Pennsylvania to sign a petition requesting that I be on the ballot. And those 5,000 signatures will inevitably be challenged, that whether they're valid or whatnot. So in general, as a rule of thumb, we like to have twice as many. So 10,000 signatures that we turn into the state. And that way we'll be relatively sure we won't be pushed off. Now, fortunately, that when we do a petition, it'll be for whatever given area, whatever given district, it'll have all the Libertarian candidates available for that district listed on that petition. So, everyone's running for a House rep or a House Senate or state Senate, state rep. We'll be able to collecting signatures for everyone up ballot. whether it be for me or for the lieutenant governor or for state or U.S. Senate. So as far as for statewide candidates, it's relatively easy process because all these down ballot candidates doing the work basically guarantees that we'll be on the ballot. But then for our side is to make sure that help out these candidates as they need it, and as we're coming to the wire, it's getting crunch time, and we need to figure out where to go, what we need to do to help get these guys that last push.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned like some of the other candidates that are running right now, can you talk about what other positions are going to be up for election? Like what kind of candidates we've got running, and are you going to be and what we refer to them as down ballot candidates? So you're going to be working with some of the down ballot candidates, doing events with them. Like, what's your plan with that?
So we working with Tim McMaster, who's the lieutenant governor candidate. And he's statewide, and also to a lesser degree, Eric Earhart, who's a U.S. Senate candidate, to kind of share events and kind of collaborate on doing different events around the state, to appeal to the people, and from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh and everywhere in between. And then as we get closer, when we start campaigning, we're reaching out to county affiliates, and we may work with the local candidates there and help campaign with them. And so it's process and planning we're starting to work with now, and that way we can kind of collaborate and get this all together, and hopefully make a showing as we move around the state and help individual candidates as we go.
Ben, you got anything else?
What would you say to someone that wants to run for office in Pennsylvania specifically as a libertarian, given what you're going through right now with the campaign and how you're viewing other campaigns going on in the Commonwealth?
Oh, what advice would I do? I mean, I highly recommend it. It's a great experience. Talking to people, collecting signatures and petitioning. It's a phenomenal experience. See what people are thinking. Where people's minds at. And something I really appreciate being able to do. It's it gets a little concerning sometimes if you think about it, because it's this is all fun and games, and all my friends having a good time, and you think about it, or you see these stories, these horror stories where a libertarian candidate becomes a threat to an establishment candidate, and the things the state will do to suppress that candidate is terrifying. People sitting in prison for nothing. Simply because they were running against the wrong guy, and that type of thing happens all the time. And it's when all it takes is a crooked police officer or judge to finagle some nonsense to say, oh yeah, you did this horrible thing, and then you can spend years in prison. That it can be pretty scary, pretty concerning. So it's like, well, do I want to make that big of a splash because then I will put myself in danger? But we have a fight to win. We have a fight to make. So it's a risk you take, especially in a bigger race. But and I think as we get closer and closer to the where we're going as a society, as a country, it's going to become more and more dangerous, if you will, because I think our views or our ideas are going to become more popular or more interesting, more appealing. Where maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, I tell people I'm an anarchist. I share my anarchist ideals, and people think I'm crazy, think I'm nuts. But today, I can talk to regular normie conservatives and even some progressives, and they go, "Yeah, that's what I do. I agree with that." Something like the national divorce, the idea of a national divorce. Whereas at one point that would be nutso, that's now discussed openly. So as our ideas become more and more mainstream like that, I think it's going to be more and more risky for us, or more and more dangerous for us, because we're going to be drawing more attention from the approved candidates. But if you believe in liberty, if this is something that you think is necessary, something that you need to fight for this for your children, then suck it up, buttercup. It's time to go.
Thanks, Matt. Ben, you got any more before we go to audience questions?
Yeah. So, is there any past candidates or maybe even current candidates that you're taking notes from, specifically when it comes to how you want to run your campaign, how you want to appeal to other people? because you look a lot like Jeremy Kauffman. I'm assuming that maybe he's an inspiration. I think he's like one of the best candidates that we've ever run.
Yeah, I mean, I have been looking at him and also Shane Hazel as kind of like inspirations. I've been kind of a little bit tempered thus far, but I'm feeling a little more spicy, so it might start kicking up a little bit. But yeah, I think that's really the way to go. I think that's the future, at least in my mind, the future of a successful, at least statewide candidacy, is this being more aggressive in our language and in our messaging. No more of this trying to not offend people or trying to just appeal to everyone, play this political game. People don't want that anymore. They want straight, they want honest, that bombastic sense that we got from like Donald Trump, where it's he says things that are offensive that makes people upset, but people rather that than the feel good used car salesman pitch that you get from average politician. So that's kind of where I'm going. We're going to call these people murderers and thieves, and we're going to say it like it is, because that's what they are.
Awesome. And I just got like 2 quick final questions for you before we get into the viewer questions. So you're running against 2 other people, Josh Shapiro and Doug Mastriano. Now, what would be like a quick little pitch that you would give to first a Shapiro voter, and then you kind of went into this earlier, but maybe if you could go into it maybe a little more, what would you say to a Mastriano voter?
So Shapiro voter, like I said, I it's harder for me to pitch to the left, just as the nature of where I come from, and my opinion of the left is not that great. But
understandable.
Say things that like, look, the establishment left wing has gone off the rails. Like, it's gone nutso. It cares more about race and gender and not about individual liberties. And it doesn't care about the freedom of speech. It doesn't care about your rights, bodily autonomy. It doesn't care about anything that the left of the Democratic Party did in the 90s. So if you're of that persuasion, if you believe in freedom of speech, if you believe in it's just the right to do whatever it is you want to do with yourself, and the freedom of the bedroom, and not this infantilizing treatment of whatever alphabet group that they might be pandering to the day, then I think that is a better choice to go with the Libertarian Party. Like I said, I will probably be more offensive to the left than I will to the right, and I don't apologize to that. I don't think I'm kind of an opinion with Hans Hermann Hoppe that I don't think you can have a functional society with the left wing. But as far as Mastriano goes, like I said, he's not truly a conservative. If you have conservative values, if you value your family, if you value the things that he claims to value, you really need to ask yourself: does he really think those things, or is he just pandering to you? Is he just a controlled opposition? Is a guy with those values, would he really ever support mail-in voting, universal mail-in voting? Is that something that they would support? I don't think so. And if you're just going to vote for this guy because he's not Shapiro, then what are you doing? You're just selling yourself down the river because you don't want to waste a vote or whatever nonsense. And as long as we keep playing that game, we keep playing that team sports, R versus D nonsense. We'll just keep going down this path until we decide, like, hey, no more of this. We're not going to go for R or D. We need to go for someone who actually wants to change, actually wants liberty, and actually believes what I want.
All right, thanks, Matt. Ben, did you have your second question, or was that both?
That was indeed both.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So with that, we'll get to audience questions. I'll put them up on the screen here. First one is by a certain Bill Cox. How do you feel about age of consent laws?
LOL, Bill. Well, age of consent laws, I don't know, like, don't have sex with children, man. That's not cool. That's yeah, it's not a very high priority of mine, to be honest. On the list of laws I want to remove from the books, I think preying upon children. I think someone who is intellectually underdeveloped compared to you, someone that you can manipulate or take advantage of. I think that is the worst kind of crime against another human being. And I don't believe in micromanaging and just using statutory law to control these things in society. I don't believe in having sex with children is ever acceptable, and I think people who do so should be to the wood chipper. So there's that.
Let's fund vigilante pedophile hunters on the internet. I think maybe that's something we could actually use.
Let's look clear. Wood chippers after fair trial by jury of their peers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we've already established that if you try to do something like that on GoFundMe, that would just get yeeted. Oh man! All right. So, next question here is from Gunner's Guitar. Can we help repeal the NFA and the ATF? And he followed that up with just how can we end it? How can we end it?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I fully support the nullification of all federal gun control laws. I don't think the state of Pennsylvania has any business enforcing federal gun control laws, whether it be the NFA or the GOA or anything else. I think it is every American's right to own. Not even every American, everyone's right, every human being's right to own whatever firearm they so choose. Whether that be a sharp-barrel rifle, machine gun, doesn't matter. I think the ATF is a terrorist organization, and that the state of Pennsylvania should ban its providing aid and comfort to their agents. They should be strictly forbidden from operating and functioning within the state of Pennsylvania. And if I were governor, I would make sure that the state police would do everything they could to thwart their efforts and to make sure that they did not freely operate within our bounds.
So you touched on something there that I don't think is familiar to most people. So can you explain nullification and how that works?
Yes. So when it comes to federal laws, like the gun laws, the ATF, the federal government, does not have sufficient resources to enforce all their nonsense laws and regulations. So they depend heavily on state and local law enforcement and resources to police federal gun laws. So this is a similar thing with, let's say, the cannabis, with the DEA, for example. What you can do, as you saw with cannabis, is that the states can say, hey, we're going to legalize these drugs, and we're no longer going to enforce federal drug laws. So once that happens, then the DEA becomes totally impotent in that state to enforce any of its prohibitions on cannabis. And the federal government will like bitch and moan for a little bit, but eventually it has to give up because it'll just show how embarrassingly weak it is. And the same thing would be done with gun laws. That the ATF, the federal government, does not have the resources necessary to enforce its gun laws. And as long as the state does not comply, does not provide its resources in assisting, then they will become impotent in enforcing those laws as well.
Yeah, and that's something that not only most people don't realize, but both sides practice it, and they just don't call it that. Like the left will call it sanctuary cities, the right will call it defying unconstitutional gun laws or something along those lines. But both sides do it; they just don't call it that.
Right. They don't have a principled understanding or a historical understanding of nullification. Right. And especially when you talk about nullification and the 10th Amendment, the left would be all like, oh, you're neo-Confederate. And they'll hark back to the days of, the early 19th century and all that entailed. But
do you support secession?
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe the full abolition of the federal government. So I think we should all be back to 50 independent states. I think the states should be sovereign over themselves, and the federal government should just go pound salt. I say I'm an anarchist, but as far as practical context that goes, I'm more of an anarchist at the federal level. If they want to the state government to run their lives, it's better off than that than the federal government. So I think the federal government should just go away. And the next best thing to do is to secede and go do our own thing.
All right. So I have one final question then that you just made me think of. So let's say you're elected to office and it's your first day. What would you do that first, I don't know, week or month that you're there? What would be the first things you do?
Oh, that's a good question. We're definitely going to have a giant house party in the governor's mansion, and we're going to invite the entire state to come and make good use of the state's resources as one of the few things the state could do to benefit people. If there's a house fire afterwards, it's not my fault. But in all seriousness, I think the first thing you can do as a governor, governor's abilities are limited. It's the executive branch, so you can't just make up legislation. But I can set enforcement priorities for the state police, and I will definitely. One of the first things I would do would we want to change what their enforcement efforts are, what their priorities are, to go from we don't want to enforce these drug laws anymore. We don't want to be wasting our resources on prohibiting these things. We don't want to be wasting resources on enforcing gun laws anymore, and a number of other things that are antithetical to liberty. So it would be my first and top priority, and I think the best thing the governor could do in that position.
Thanks, Matt. Ben, you got any final thoughts or questions?
Not really, no. Thank you for taking the time to come do this episode with us, and I'm really looking forward to your run. Maybe you could tell people, where they can go if they want to support your campaign, if they can donate to you. Do you accept cryptocurrency, things like that?
So if you want to donate to me, you can go to matthackenberg.com. We don't currently take cryptocurrency, mainly because the campaign finance laws are terrifying. But it is something we are looking into. So it's at matthackenberg.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Matt Hackenberg. And then, same thing, Facebook at Matt Hackenberg, PA. But yeah, if you go to the website, matthackenberg.com, there's a little donate button there. You can click there and, send some money our way. It's always a big help. I said, gas is expensive. It's like, especially when you have a big ass bus. That's a short bus, but it's a big short bus. Putting $5 a gallon, $4.50 a gallon gas in there, and it's a lot. So any money people can throw us is the more stops we can make, the more of the state we can see, the more people we can visit, more hands we can shake, and more babies we can kiss.
Yeah, it's all Putin's price hike, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's all Putin's fault, definitely. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
So I don't know if you touched on. I don't think you touched on this yet, but what would people do if they wanted to volunteer? Like, what are some ways that people could help out?
Well, again, so you actually, go to matthackenberg.com. There's the ability to sign up to volunteer. Get some information. We can get you set up. And the biggest thing we need right now is kind of, organizing events. Find places around the state who would like us to come visit and set up meet and greets and things like that. Is the biggest thing to help, and just kind of get foot soldiers out there and sort of spreading the message.
All right, thanks again, Matt. Can you give your final pitch to the audience here? Something they can pass along to their friends and family about why they should support you or vote for you.
Yeah, if you're tired of the same old, the establishment taking advantage of you, riding you to the ground, grinding you down, destroying your wealth, and undermining the prospects of your future, of your children's future, and you actually want to change, then it's now or never. It's time to get on board and fight the fight for liberty. And if we don't do it now, our children won't have what we have, and it'll be much harder for them. So let's fight and let's do it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Matt. If you could stick around for a minute backstage, and we'll talk with you soon.
Roger Wilco.
All right. Okay. Now we're back. Okay. Thanks again, Matt, for coming on. That was a really good show. I feel like we got a lot out of that, and hopefully the audience listening in learned a thing or two about the impact that libertarians can have on the state level. We're running candidates right here in PA, and ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to convey to the members and people in Pennsylvania, like some of the things that the caucus and the parties got going on, so they know what we're doing, how they can get involved, and how we're starting to make an impact here as we grow. So anything to add to that, Ben?
No, not really. Everything you said, I pretty much agree with. I think Matt has. I think he's a good person that we chose to run for this office. I think his campaign has a lot of potential. I think there's a lot more attention being given to the Libertarian Party, especially in Pennsylvania, as of recently looking at how many local candidates we've been able to get elected. So I'm very hopeful for this campaign, and I think we should have him on again closer to the actual election, and maybe see how things have changed.
Oh, for sure. This won't be the last time. It's good to have another solid candidate on the ballot. I followed the campaign of our gubernatorial nominee in 2018 as well, and I really liked a lot of things that he was doing. But Matt is, I really like the job that he's doing too, and he's definitely going about it in a different way. And I do like the person who ran in 2018, so I can't make a statement about whether it's one's objectively better than the other, but I definitely think he's bringing people in a new way.
I appreciate how much
really
more active on
capitalizing
social
on
media he is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So next week we'll have a returning guest, but we're going to keep it a surprise on it for now. So I'll just say we'll have a surprise returning guest next week. So Ben, I think you might know, so don't say anything. We're just gonna keep it a surprise for the audience.
I'll go look in the group chat because I don't remember.
So you'll to everyone else, sorry, you'll just have to tune in next week to see who our special surprise returning guest is. It's gonna be a real treat. So definitely stick around for that. Just a reminder, if you want to join the caucus or find out more about us, you can go to takehumanaction.com. That'll take you to our sign-in page or sign up, or you can click on some of the links there to find out more information about us. You can follow me on Twitter at the LP Mises Caucus PA account. We're also on Facebook as well. Ben, you want to give any more plugs?
My Twitter is right there in my name at Ben Heckman _. Go follow me there. It's where I do a lot of sharing of my opinions and shit posting. Also, I should plug Young Americans for Liberty, nonpartisan libertarian organization doing a lot of good work. We got an event coming up here in about a week in Orlando from August 4th to 6th called Revolution 22. And Dave Smith, our Messiah, will be speaking there. And I'm really looking forward to it. So if you're interested in that, contact me, hit me up. Also, what Calvin said, donate to the Mises Caucus and support the caucus and the Pennsylvania Libertarian Party as well.
Oh, you got to skip that so you can host the show next week.
Maybe I can do a little bit of both.
Well, no, even better. You need to bring like all the speakers onto one camera visual, and then we'll just interview all of them at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Mark, Claire, Clint Russell, and Reed Coverdale are going to be there, so I can get them in on it.
I don't know. Is Mark Claire going to make an appearance on a Mises Caucus podcast? I don't know about that.
No, well, he doesn't. He did. Maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe ask him first. But if he wants to come on, I wouldn't say no. So we'll see. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Until next week with our special surprise guest, same time Thursday at 9 Eastern. Until then.